Are you guys all ready for Thanksgiving next week? I know I am. I'm ready for a break. It's going to be fun. Anybody going out of town for Thanksgiving? Kind of bummed out though. My in-laws are coming from where it's freezing cold right now, and it's supposed to be raining all next week and here. I don't know if you guys saw that, on top of all the rain we've gotten this week, which has been crazy. Some of those microbursts yesterday were like really, really heavy, heavy, heavy rain. I had to drive to my best friend's house, and she lives about 25 minutes away from me, and I got caught in a terrible microburst. It was nuts. It was pushing my car. But rain is a good thing, so I can't complain. All right, guys, so once you get logged on to Socrative, we will just really get going through those questions. Remember, the room name is Radnich Bio. And even if you jump in past the first question, not a big deal. You can jump in whenever. So question 1 asked, which of the following would represent a phenotype? And 100% of you said a mouse's brown fur, which is correct, because the other ones are stuff we can't see, and it's actually just the gene itself. But the mouse's brown fur is actually how the gene is being expressed. Okay, review. Which of the following represents a homozygous dominant individual? Homozygous dominant. And some of these are from last week, and I added some new ones for us too at the end. Did anybody put their Christmas tree up yet? I'm putting mine up on Saturday. Really, Thanksgiving's supposed to be this week, so I think Friday or Saturday is totally acceptable. No, but I'm putting it up this weekend, and you put yours up already, Kayla. Awesome. Yep, I'm definitely going to put mine up on Saturday. Okay, so your correct answer was capital A, capital A. Very good. When we look at alleles, and we look at if an allele is dominant or recessive, we make it a capital letter when it's dominant, and homozygous means same. So 2 dominant alleles, which would be big A, big A. Great job. Michelle, do you guys keep yours up then like later? Like so after Christmas is over, you keep it up till New Year's? Yeah, that makes sense. I know some people do that. I usually leave mine up till New Year's too. I don't know. I just leave mine up probably way too long, but I like it. I have a weird thing with Christmas ornaments. Me and my family, we like get them everywhere we go on vacation and stuff. So when I look at my tree, I have like a ton of memories. And I also have ornaments from every single year I've been alive. So I have baby ornaments, first year ornaments, all the way up to now I'm 31. So I have quite a lot. All right, so what does it mean if someone has a recessive disorder? Sickle cell, for example, is a recessive disorder. And a lot of diseases we do see tend to be recessive disorders, whether they be somatic or sex cell disorders. One of the sex-linked traits is hemophilia, and hemophilia is a recessive disorder. So males tend to have hemophilia more than females because it's carried on the X chromosome. and females have 2 X chromosomes and males have an XY chromosome. So if the gene is carried on the X chromosome, then males only need 1 recessive allele to have the disorder. So that's why we see a lot more males have hemophilia than females, because females would have to have 2 of the recessive alleles, where males only have to have 1. My husband's best friend has hemophilia, and basically it just means that he can't, his blood can't clot. So anytime he gets like hurt, he has to do like almost like a shot where he puts the clotting factor into him. Kind of interesting. Gregor Mendel, we know him as the father of genetics. What did he study when he was discovering all his things? Oh yeah, you guys got that one, pea plants. And remember, some of the things that he really found out with those pea plants was a lot of times genes aren't, like linked together, and you have this kind of independent assortment of these genes. You also have a lot of random fertilization, meaning that there are so many male gametes and so many different combinations of female gametes that you only need 1 sperm and egg to unite, and that's kind of random. 1 sperm doesn't have an advantage over another. So he discovered a lot of things, and he also discovered, remember, dominant and recessive genes. So even though those recessive ones disappeared, they can come back. Okay, if an individual with the genotype AA mates with another individual with the genotype AA, what genotype would not be possible? So you have a homozygous dominant, and then you have a heterozygous person. What would not be possible for their offspring? I like doing Punnett squares to kind of figure this stuff out. They can be kind of fun. So with this one, you don't even need a Punnett square, because we know that when it comes to alleles, you get 1 from mom and 1 from dad, right? So one of your genes comes from mom and 1 comes from dad. And so, like, let's say your dad is the 2 capital A's and your mom is the big A, little a. It would be impossible for one of their offsprings to have 2 little a's, because dad doesn't have a little a. So it would be impossible for dad to contribute a little a because he doesn't have one. Okay, which of the following represents natural selection? And we're going to talk a little bit more about natural selection today in lecture. And then we're going to talk about one of my favorite things, which is population growth, and we're going to look specifically at humans. Awesome, you guys all got it 100%. When organisms are better suited for the environment, they're going to survive and pass on their traits. Okay, so here are our new questions. So those other ones were from last week. Which of the following best represents the relationship between DNA and genes? So think about it, because some of these, are kind of tricky. This is a tricky question. Oh, nice, Michelle. 8th grade, heredity and genetics. Yeah, that's one of my favorite topics to talk about. I love it, because it just leads into so much other stuff. That's why it's fun. All right, go ahead and submit your answer. Okay, so let's talk about this, because we're about 60-40 with it. So let's talk about what the correct answer is. It says a lot of you chose genes will code for DNA, but not necessarily. That wouldn't be a really good answer. Your best answer is C. A gene is a section of DNA. So DNA, if you remember, is basically just this super, super long list of letters, A, T, C, and G. And a little section of those letters is going to represent a gene. And a gene is basically just a code to express a trait. So for example, how tall you are. You have genes, which are little sections of DNA that are going to be able to express how tall you are. That's your trait, is how tall you are. So genes are just a section of DNA, a section of those letters. Which of the following best represents an allele? All right, awesome job, guys. An allele is a version of a gene. So there can be an allele for blue eyes, and there can be an allele for brown eyes, blue and brown eyes. Very good. Okay, this is a little bit of a complicated picture. We're going to talk a little bit more about now kind of ecology, I guess, and genetics. So the chart above represents, or next to it, represents beak depth difference before and after a drought for a group of finches in the Galapagos Island. The change in phenotypic variations, so phenotype is just what the trait looks like, remember? So it's what you can actually see. And basically, what is the shift of the genotypic variations known as? What do you think? So as you can see, beak depth has changed before and after a drought. What do you think this is called? Okay, good job. So we're about 70-30 on the right answer. So about 70% of you got it right. The correct answer is B, genetic drift. I put stabilizing shift in there to kind of trick you a little bit because that's a type of population selection. But really, genetic drift just means that phenotypes are changing because the environment's changing, and obviously there was a drought that occurred, so the beak depths changed, so the birds that had a different beak depth were able to probably eat more food and be able to survive. Last question. So we have a bunch of birds here, and they're chowing down on some bugs. Over time, what is this population of beetles going to look like, based on what you know about natural selection? Awesome job. You guys all got this right. Orange bugs are going to be more prevalent in the population because the birds obviously are favoring the green bugs. Maybe they're easier to see or something. They don't blend in with the environment. So that means the orange bugs are going to be reproducing and surviving. And so all of their orange little baby bugs are going to be orange. And orange bugs are just going to be more prevalent within that population. Okay, great job. So that's it for Socrative. So let's go back to our pear deck, our presentation now. So remember, the code's always in the upper right-hand corner. So I first wanted to look at this picture here. And basically, basically what I wanted to show you guys was this is natural selection kind of in a nutshell. And I kind of wanted to go over this again because I feel like we haven't hit on this enough in just live lectures and what natural selection is. So natural selection is basically the ability for organisms to be better suited for their environment. And there's some principles of natural selection. So one, a lot of times we see populations actually overproduce. We definitely see this in like super small mammals like rabbits and mice, and then our bugs and fish, they lay tons of eggs. So we're usually producing more organisms than the environment can support. So which organisms are going to be selected for? That's the question. Well, we know that there's going to be variations within populations. I mean, if you go to Walmart and just look around Walmart, everybody's slightly different. We're not all clones of each other. So we have variation because we have different genes. So as you can see here, these jaguars can have larger skull or larger jaws and teeth, or some can have smaller jaws with smaller teeth. So you can see their jaguar skull 1 is larger than skull number 2. So how does this work? Well, let's say a long time ago, there was a shortage of mammals in the rainforest. So maybe there was some sort of disease that took a lot of littler mammals, little like deer and stuff, out. So now these jaguars had to resort to eating turtles. Turtles have a very hard shell. And only the jaguars with the larger skulls were able to eat these turtles. So that means the jaguars with the smaller skulls probably didn't get enough food, they probably didn't survive, and they weren't able to pass on their genes. So now all of a sudden we have all these jaguars with larger skulls that are being able to reproduce, and now their children or their offspring are also having larger jaws. So over time, that population will shift, and most of the jaguars will now have these larger jaws because it better fits with the environment. And that's the whole term of descent with modification. Descent with modification pretty much means that over time, organisms and populations will be better suited for their environment. So just remember that overall, populations and species can evolve, but individuals can't. Okay, the jaguar with the smaller skull, he can't evolve into a bigger skull. He just won't pass on his genes, and then he won't have offspring that have the smaller skulls. So that's just kind of natural selection in a nutshell. The next thing we're going to talk about today is one of my favorite things, and it's population growth. So I want you to look at this graph really quickly and think about a population. When would a population be able to grow exponentially, which is the chart on the left? What do you think a carrying capacity is for a population? And then why would populations stop growing exponentially? All right, let's finish up here in the next like 45 seconds or so. A lot of you guys are writing a lot, which is awesome. It means you're super explaining it to me, which I love. All right, so let's go over this. I know some of you guys are still writing a little bit, which is totally fine. You can continue to talk, but let's just think about this. So populations can exponentially grow when there's no predators, when there's an abundance of food, when there's an abundance of space, there's no disease. So usually this occurs when a population is like introduced to a new area. There's usually a lot of resources available. And then once they reach what's called the carrying capacity, that basically means that they're at the point where that is how much the environment can support. A lot of times populations will overshoot the carrying capacity at first and then come back down because they can't support more than what the environment can support. So they kind of overshoot the carrying capacity and then come back down. And then what would limit a population from growing exponentially would kind of be the same things as what would allow it to grow exponentially. So once we get to the point where we don't have enough food, we don't have enough space, space is a big thing. When we don't have enough water or necessary resources. And a lot of times too, you guys got to remember, once you have this ginormous population, disease is one of those things it's much more susceptible. So once you get into tight spaces, disease can kind of run rampant and really cause chaos. Awesome. So let's look at human population growth. Look at that chart. Is human population growing exponentially? Do you think humans have a carrying capacity, and have we reached that carrying capacity? So a lot of you guys are saying that we are definitely growing exponentially or still pretty quickly. Good. And then some of you are saying that, yeah, we do have a carrying capacity. And some people are saying, I think we have reached it. Some people are saying that we haven't reached it yet. And I love to see that you guys are really thinking about it and kind of, wondering like, well, have we or have we not? And we're going to watch a really short video that goes into human population growth and the future of human population growth. Are we still exponentially growing? And if we are, why? So let's just watch this quick video. It's very short, but it's very good.
Before in history have there been so many people on Earth as right now? Our numbers have skyrocketed from 1 billion in 1800 to 2.3 billion in 1940 3.7 billion in 1970, and 7.4 billion in 2016. The world population increased fourfold in the last century, so what can we expect for the next century? And what does population growth mean for our future? Will there be mass migration, overcrowded slums in megacities covering continents, diseases and pollution, chaos and violence over energy, water and food, and a human species focused only on sustaining itself? Will population growth destroy our way of life, or is this prophecy just ungrounded panic? In the 1960s, population growth reached an unprecedented rate, which led to apocalyptic prophecies. The poor would procreate endlessly and overrun the developed world. The legend of overpopulation was born. But it turns out high birth rates and the population explosion are not permanent features of some cultures or countries, but rather part of a four-step process the whole world is going through: the demographic transition. Most developed countries have already made the transition, while other countries are doing it right now. Let's go back to the 18th century, when the entire world, including Europe, was in the first stage of the demographic transition. By today's standards, Europe was worse off than a developing region, suffering from poor sanitation, poor diets, and poor medicine. A lot of people were born, but lots of them died just as fast, so the population hardly grew. Women had between 4 and 6 children, but only 2 of them would reach adulthood. Then the Industrial Revolution happened in the UK and brought the greatest change in human living conditions since the Agricultural Revolution. People went from being peasants to workers. Manufactured goods were mass-produced and became widely available. The sciences flourished and advanced transportation, communication, and medicine. The role of women in society shifted and created the conditions for their emancipation. Slowly, this economic progress not only formed a middle class, but also raised standards of living and healthcare for the poor working population. The second transition stage started. Better food supplies, hygiene, and medicine meant people stopped dying all the time, especially so at a very young age. The result was a population explosion, doubling the UK's population between 1750 and 1850. The main reason families used to have lots of children was that only a few of them were likely to survive. Now that had changed, so the third stage of the transition was set in motion, fewer babies were conceived, and population growth slowed down. Eventually, a balance emerged. Fewer people were dying and fewer children were born, so the death rate and birth rate became stable. Britain had reached the fourth stage of the demographic transition. This didn't only happen in the UK. More and more countries went through the 4 stages. First, many births and many deaths due to bad living conditions. Second, better living conditions leading to fewer deaths and a population explosion. Third, fewer deaths resulting in fewer births, and population growth came to an end. But if birth rates have dropped so much, why is the population still growing so fast? Well, the children born in the population explosion of the 70s and 80s are having kids themselves now, leading to a noticeable spike in overall population. But they are having far fewer children on average than their parents. The average today is 2.5. It was 5 40 years ago. So as this generation gets older and fertility declines further, the rate of population growth will keep on slowing. This is true for every country. In the West, we tend to overlook progress in other regions of the world, but actually most of the world's countries have made it to the 4th stage. Just look at Bangladesh. In 1971, the average woman had 7 kids, but 25% of them would die before the age of 5. In 2015, the mortality rate was down to 3.8%, and women had only 2.2 kids on average. This is the rule, not an exception. We're not special, we just had a head start. It took developed countries about 80 years to reduce fertility from more than 6 children to less than 3. Others are catching up fast. Malaysia and South Africa did it in only 34 years. Bangladesh took just 20. Iran managed it in 10 years. All these countries that are catching up didn't have to start from scratch, and the more support they get, the faster they catch up. This is why programs that help lower child mortality or help poor nations develop are so important. No matter what your motivation is, whether you dream of a world where all people live in freedom and wealth, or you just want fewer refugees coming to your country, the simple truth is that it's beneficial to you personally if people on the other side of the globe can live a good life. And we are getting there. The percentage of people living in extreme poverty has never been as low as today. So the future of global population growth is actually not an apocalyptic prophecy at all. It's a promise. Population growth will come to an end. The UN forecasts that the 12th billionth human will never be born at all. And as the development level of the world rises, the number of people with a higher education will increase tenfold. Countries who used to be in need will help advance development instead. More people is going to mean more people able to advance our species. This video was a collaboration with Max.
All right, so to finish off then, let's answer these few questions. Why isn't human population growth apocalyptic, according to the video? Is the human population still exponentially growing? And do you think human population growth will continue to stabilize? All right, looks like most of you are done or finishing up. So yeah, it's slowing down. It's not exponentially growing anymore, and it's not so apocalyptic and scary as we kind of just think about. And one of the things that I really wanted you guys to notice on that graph that you see on the left is that we are kind of like a normal population. We know normal populations exponentially grow, and you guys saw in the video why. We exponentially started to grow because better healthcare, better living conditions, and all of a sudden, boom, everybody was still having a ton of babies, but they weren't dying in infant mortality or child mortality. So we exponentially grew, and then we reached a point where we kind of hit our limit, and now that population is actually starting to dip a little bit, and we will stabilize, which is kind of cool to think about. So when you look at normal populations in the wild, we're kind of starting to do the same thing, which is interesting. We exponentially grow, and then we start to see the S curve, which is where we level out and we kind of hit our carrying capacity. So the J curve, our exponential growth, happened at first, but now we're starting to get into that S curve, which is called logistic growth. So yeah, we're definitely making progress. And like I said, I just think it's interesting how we are starting to almost catch up again with nature. We outsmarted nature for a long time and exponentially grew, and now we're kind of starting to be like, okay, there is a limit to how many humans should be on Earth. All right, so I won't see you guys next week because this time next week, I think a lot of us will be probably getting ready to eat a whole bunch of food, which I'm excited about. So Monday, I will definitely be working late to make sure that I get your guys' grading caught up and answer any questions. I know I'm doing a lot of DBAs on Monday. If you've already done your first and still need to schedule now your second, the link is on the Canvas homepage. So make sure you click on that and schedule your second one. It'll be over a lot of genetics stuff. So a lot of your Unit 3 stuff we'll talk about. And then Tuesday, my in-laws are in town, so I can't really work on Tuesday. So, and then Wednesday, I'm off Wednesday as well. So Tuesday during the day, I'll be able to answer any questions or anything if you shoot me a text or a message. But then starting Wednesday, I'll much be out of commission. And I know you guys have Thursday and Friday off too. So really enjoy next week and enjoy being with your family and enjoy eating a bunch of really awesome food. And I can't wait to hear about your guys' Thanksgiving when we get back. So you guys have a really awesome rest of your week. I know we went over about 10 minutes today, but that's okay. We were having a good time talking about stuff. So let me know if you need anything. But other than that, you guys have a great day.